What is the fastest you have ever seen a new coworker get fired? During their onboarding training, they stole my boss's wallet on camera. 1 hour in. We had a recent college grad that would use his corporate card for personal purchases. He figured that the company would just keep deducting from his payroll until it was paid off. He was fired after 3 months of constant reminders to stop doing it. I don't think it qualifies as the fastest, because he lasted 3 months, but it was so idiotic. A week. I worked in a bar and a new girl started. At work, she seemed a little rough but was fine. One day she finished a shift, sat at the bar and ordered a red wine with lemonade and ice in it, not really relevant to the story, just shows she is clearly insane. Her boyfriend came in, they had a huge domestic in front of my manager and several customers and she threw her drink over her BF and dramatically stormed out. New bar drink. Wine plus lemonade equals a domestic. Don't forget it's on the rocks, just like the relationship. This is the opposite route here but I found it amusing. My boss was out of town and I managed a tea shop near a Starbucks years ago. This kid came in, foreign, and said he was supposed to start today. We were hiring and I trained him etc. My boss came back 2 days later and had no idea. The kid was in the wrong place but he stayed with us. Hired on the spot without even applying. First day of work, he walks in, says what the fuck is up dumbass to the guy that parked next to, didn't touch, his new Camaro he bought since he got hired. The guy was the CEO of the company I used to work for, on visit to our branch. Literally 10 minutes into his shift he was signing release papers. I work construction. We had 2 new hires that were friends starting the same day. Boss told one take a coffee order and come back. Took everyone's money and said he needed his friend to go with him cause it was a big order. They never came back. Guy got hired, while going through orientation realized that his ex-GF worked there too, turned around and walked right out the front door. This was a while ago at my old job. New guy gets hired as a busboy. He was super annoying and tried to insert himself into everyone's conversation whether they wanted him there or not. It only took a couple of hours for the whole restaurant to hate him. I was working the bar and he kept eating the bar fruit. I personally didn't care but the manager did. Manager comes over and tells him to stop eating the fruit. He looks the manager in the eye and eats another piece of fruit. Manager says really? Followed by come with me to the office. New guy promptly replies with alright man, calm down. I can tell you got that big dick energy for a good reason followed with cliche wink and nudge from his elbow. In front of me and like 4 other employees. I wanted to slam my face into the ice bin, it was so cringy to witness. He promptly walked out the front door 10 minutes later without his uniform on anymore. The worst thing about it was the manager was an insanely laid back guy. Hell, the whole restaurant was insanely laid back. You really had to try hard to get fired from this place. Had he not thrown in that big dick line, I'm almost positive he would have just gotten a slap on the wrist and kept the job. I got hired as a long-term temp with one other person to do some basic data entry work at a major brand pretty much everyone has heard of. And it was at their corporate headquarters so pretty prestigious. Anyway, we went through all of this onboarding stuff in the morning that required us to get photo IDs and figure out parking and all that stuff. Then after 2 or 3 hours we were introduced to one of the employees in our new department who began going over what we were going to be doing. None of it seemed overly difficult and I figured that while it was new system I had never used before I'd be able to work it out in a few days as long as I asked questions and took notes. And that was the thing that made me realize that the other person who got hired with me probably lied on her resume and was completely out of her depth. She didn't take any notes and didn't ask any questions. And whenever I glanced at her I could see flashes of panic on her face. Well, lunchtime came and when we came back she said that another company had called her and offered her a permanent position and she couldn't work with us any longer. Both me and the person training us knew what was going on but I'll give the other lady credit for finding a way out without losing face too badly. The takeaway here is, yes, fake it until you make it can and does work. But you gotta be able to fake it. You can't fake faking it. A 19-year-old kid got hired to work the seafood counter. See him twice and then never again. Asked a coworker what happened. He had closed seafood one night and was walking out of the store and the 5 pounds of crab legs he'd stuffed down the back of his pants fell out in front of the closing manager. Edit, it was at a Publix. No, it was not Jameis Winston. This was a pizza place I worked at in college. New guy was started on Thursday. Fine worker, we showed him the ropes. He was on subs, which is the easiest job. The instructions are right in front of your face. Friday he no call no shows, it's Friday. The busiest night of the week. And he and I were the only kitchen workers that weren't also drivers. Monday a police officer shows up at the restaurant looking for him. No idea what happened as he wasn't there. Tuesday the owner informed me he was let go. Where to begin? One person didn't show up for their second day, citing culture shock, and then spent at least an hour each day complaining about everything to HR. They were gone inside of a month. Some other bloke refused to follow processes and called his manager an irrelevant woman in team meetings. Gone within a week. My favorite was technically a new coworker from my perspective only, as I'd only just become aware of their existence. They interpreted "we're going to retire that server from production" as "we're going to throw the hardware off of the roof into a skip," and proceeded to head down to the data center, power the thing off in the middle of the day, drive to his friend's office, plug the box in and deploy a bunch of IVR scripts he'd derived from our proprietary scripts so they could run a bunch of psychic and sex hotlines. He was gone within 10 minutes of getting that server back. Couldn't pass the simple tests given at the end of new hire orientation. Yelled at test facilitator when she wouldn't just take the test for him. Sounds like an engineer my company hired. He was a PhD and really hit it off with the guys in management. Had some female colleagues working under his direction, and he was an absolute dick, demeaned their work, blamed them for things not working. Now my colleagues were excellent formulation chemists. He was brought on to lead a new formulation project and it wasn't working. He would tell them how to do it and it never worked. He kept blaming them for doing it wrong. My coworker got fed up and called him on his bullshit during a big meeting with a prepared presentation describing what they tried, how thoroughly they tried it, why what he proposed would never work, and an alternative solution. He was pissed, but the management guys were extremely knowledgeable and started asking him questions, and it was clear he couldn't answer. Turns out, his wife has a PhD too, and she pretty much did all of his degree work for him, both from a culture where women are not treated equally. He knew absolutely nothing. Not only that, but once everyone got to talking, it was clear just how massive an asshole this guy was. Sadly, my colleagues had to deal with this for months before everything was said and done. Spent my summers in college working as a laborer for a construction company. Anyway, we were doing a bunch of renovation in an active hospital, so noise and dust were a huge concern. We were a small crew and just starting renovations on an area with a super tight schedule, so the company hired a subcontractor for some of the work. Enter these two clowns who show up to do some demolition work. Foreman gives them the talk about how they may be used to doing things a certain way, but this is an active hospital, so he'd rather the work take longer than for them to make a huge mess or a lot of noise. An hour later, we apparently got multiple complaints about the noise and the mess, so the foreman calls me up and says to go over there and clean up now, and that he'd be by shortly to see what the hell was going on. These dudes had dust and broken wall everywhere. I could hear them halfway down the hall, just smashing away without a care in the world. The foreman shows up and we walk into the room to witness this dude standing on a pile of rubble swinging a sledgehammer over his head at a brick wall that he's removed the bottom from. Somehow the rest of this wall is still hanging from the ceiling, I have no idea how. Guy wasn't even wearing a hard hat, apparently oblivious that at any moment that wall might give way and crush him. The foreman lost his fucking mind on these guys. Kicked them out immediately, and got on the phone with their company and told them he didn't want to see these guys on site again. Lots of choice 4-letter words were used, even threatened to fire the subcontractor entirely and get someone else to do the work. The IT crew at a large government office worked on a ticket system, meaning that the government workers submitted their problem online and one of the IT guys would pick it up on their end. The new guy just started his first day, logged into a computer at an empty office, and submitted a reinstall entire OS request so he could spend all day there. The manager decided to check in on him before lunch to see how he was doing, and he was completely asleep. Fired before they even finished his hiring paperwork. Guy got hired, went through training and all that jazz. First day on the floor, he disappeared for 3 hours and then came back high as fuck on like meth or something. A manager found him in the bathroom aisle, staring at himself in the mirror. Said manager looked at the cameras after firing him. The guy was there staring at himself for at least 30+ minutes. Edit to clear up some questions. I worked at Home Depot, he was in the aisle where we sell bathroom countertops and medicine cabinets. We also have mirrors in this aisle and that's where he was. Not in the bathroom, ha. Corporate chain restaurant. New server, aged mid-30s. Third day he was working, we had to fire him mid-shift. Why? Dude went into the public restrooms, with other guests clearly in there using the urinal, and started doing lines of blow off on the edge of the sink. I called a temp agency to get someone to help me count inventory. They sent a guy over with a cast on his arm. That was my first WTF, but I went with it because we were just counting parts. Then I came back from lunch and this dude was in my office chair zoned out and drooling on himself with a can of air duster in his lap. I kicked him awake and escorted him out of my warehouse. Never used that temp agency again. New director starts, at lunchtime goes to cafeteria, pays for the first salad plate, by weight, then goes back twice for refills without paying. Cafeteria has cameras, cafeteria manager talks to the partner in charge. New director fired before the end of day. 5 days. My boss hired an executive chef, dude didn't even know how to make a quesadilla. What dark secret are you hiding from everyone? When I was a teenager, I worked at a novelty tourist shop near me. Being the idiot that I was, I stole a wad of cash from the store. It was $100 in ones. I told nobody, but they knew it was missing. Right about the same time, a coworker who was always trying to get me fired was telling someone she got about $100 in tips from her other job. They ended up firing her because they didn't trust that it wasn't her. My stepdad tried to kill me when I was little. Trigger warning for domestic violence and language. My stepdad was a grade A asshole. He was in my life from the beginning, after my bio dad up and left, till I was about 13 to 14. He was an abusive, alcoholic, jobless dickwad who constantly physically and verbally abused both my mom and I. On multiple occasions either my mom or I called the cops and watched them drag the sorry sack of shit out the house and throw him in jail for a couple of days. They were, sadly, the happiest days of my childhood. When I was little I can remember countless times where I had gotten into physical fights with the man, resulting in black eyes, cuts, bruises, the works. I won't go into detail any further, since it's kinda hard to talk about, but I will say this. I never told anyone about this. This is the first time I've gotten it down in writing or out in the open at all. When I was little, 5 to 6 years old I'd say, I lived with my mom and stepdad in my stepdad's parents' attic. My mom frequently went out during the day for work, and didn't come home till late evening or night. Well, one day, after my parents had a pretty hostile argument, my mom left for work and my dad was pretty pent up. This is what I remember, and continue to remember almost every day since the event. My dad took one of those large, heavy-duty trash bags out of his parents' kitchen, dragged me into the living room of the attic, stuffed me in the bag, and tied it after letting out some air. I remember being terrified, too scared to act out of fear of getting hit or yelled at. I waited till I heard him close the attic door, then proceeded to use my fingers to claw a hole through the trash bag. I remember it taking a while, since I wasn't that strong at the time due to malnourishment and well, my age, but I eventually made it out and laid on the floor just waiting for my mom to get home. I'd give she knows what happened, if she just thought I was playing with a trash bag or what, but that's what I remember and I've been carrying it for years. Thankfully she eventually left that dirt bag and I can now happily say I have an amazing father who I love very much, so this story does have a happy ending. Thanks for reading my little vent. I'm kinda terrified to post this but getting it out finally will do me some good. Last Christmas I leaned my sister and I don't have the same father and are technically half sisters. My sister's biological father tried to start a relationship with my mom that resulted in a pregnancy and ultimately didn't work out. That biological father is dead now but I didn't probe any further about his identity or how he died in case it was something traumatic for my mom to remember. So she raised my sister as a single mother at my grandma's house in the 80s, then she met my father and they started dating and it worked out because they got married in the 90s, moved into a new house, and a short time after that I was born. She told me never call my sister my half-sister and just pretend all of this doesn't matter because she's my sister and I'm keeping it that way, and if anyone asks about the 10-year age gap I just tell them, it's a long story. When I was young, probably around age 9 or 10, I was walking home with my dog from a house around the block when he cut the corner and walked diagonally through the yard of this super mean old lady who lived at the end of your street. She was in her yard at the time tending to these really fancy looking rose bushes she had growing in beds along the border with her neighbor. My dog was a very friendly golden retriever who didn't even really come near her and certainly didn't do anything threatening, but she sprayed the fuck out of him with some kind of insecticide or other chemical she was using on her roses. I ran back home with the dog and hosed him off. He coughed a bunch, but seemed otherwise fine. I didn't tell my parents because somehow I thought I was going to get into trouble for letting the dog walk in her yard. I'm glad I didn't tell them, though, because I decided that night to sneak downstairs, out the half-bath window, and down the street to her yard where I cut down every goddamn rose bush I could get my hands on. I have a secret fantasy life, populated with imaginary friends. It started in grade school, and I have continued all my life. I am in my 50s now, and still prefer to be alone in my imaginary world instead of being with family or friends. I can't even tell my psychiatrist because I am afraid he will lock me up or give me drugs to make it all stop. I witnessed my fiancé's suicide last year. I moved states afterwards and started a new life. My coworkers, clients, and new friends call me the sunshine of whatever room I walk into, but I'm completely dead inside. Even though I choose to fake it, I resent them for not seeing how fucked up I am. When I was 16, I conspired with a heroin addict I met online to help me off myself with heroin and dump my body in a dumpster in exchange for my valuables. I lived in a small town and he was in a bigger city where my school had an upcoming trip. We planned for me to slip away during the trip and meet up with him to do the deed. He chickened out last minute and ghosted me. I don't think he chickened out. He probably never believed the plan was serious. Yeah, you're probably right. When I was younger I lived with my grandmother. Not long after I turned 18 her health started to decline, that sort of decline that means she won't be around for much longer. Over the months I did my best to take care of her. Getting her to the hospital when she needed, and other things. We had someone coming every day to help her with things I couldn't. Well, what my family doesn't know is that the night she passed, I was in the living room watching TV. My dog was in bed with my grandma, and I started to hear him whimper and bark. I knew what was happening. I knew that if I acted I could potentially save her. I didn't want to watch her suffer anymore though, to watch her live with so much pain, and unable to do anything for herself anymore. So I made the choice to let her pass before making any calls. She lived 92 years, and the only regret I have is that she passed a month after I would have graduated if I hadn't been kicked out of school. She had been in good enough health at the time to go to my graduation. I still kick myself for how stupid I was back then. Edit, I didn't expect this much support. Thanks. I'm not too torn up about letting her pass. I knew it was for the best. She was such a great person, she didn't deserve to live in such a poor manner any longer than she already had. I don't regret what I did, I regret what I had done that got me kicked out of school, that I didn't try and make it to graduation for her. I think I've lived my life so far in a way that she'd be proud of. Not graduating before she passed is the only regret I really have in this life so far, and I'm 35 now. So I think I'm doing pretty good. Not a huge secret in comparison to some of these answers, but I feel the guilt of it often. After my fiancée passed, I napped all the time for over a year. My aunt was calling me one day and I just denied her call, went back to napping. It was my aunt calling because my grandma, who was very sick with cancer, wanted to say happy birthday a day before my birthday. Grandma died the next day. I should have picked up the damn phone. She still loved you and just wants you to be happy. It's okay to not be okay, and sometimes we miss important things for that reason. My brother and I did a 23andMe. We discovered we have a half-sibling, same father, who is older than us. I messaged them but no reply. Since the half-sibling is older, it was during my father's military career, which was short-lived because he got a dishonorable discharge that he hides from his family still. Kind of similar story here. 6 years ago when I was 24 my mom randomly told me I have an older half-sister that my dad completely abandoned. She only knew of my sister's mother's name, so I searched for her on Facebook and found my sister. She is the spitting image of our father, so I knew immediately it was true. Both my sister and her mom confirmed it, and my sister and I immediately started bonding. We are incredibly close now. My father's side was overjoyed when I found her, as they knew of her but never what happened to her. We've all welcomed her with open arms, except my father. When she reached out to him, he essentially told her to fuck off, then screamed at me that she wasn't my sister, and continues to call me the bitch that ruined the family. Her and I did 23andMe and we matched as half-siblings, so now there's no denying it. I lost a shitty father but gained an incredible sibling that means 10 times more to me. My grandpa was stationed in Okinawa, Japan during the Korean War, while in the Marines. He hooked up with a woman there, and she got pregnant. So, I have a Japanese aunt and a few cousins, in Japan, whom I've never met before. Hank? Hank Hill? I never have other plans that I just can't cancel. 4 o'clock, wallow in self-pity. 4:30, stare into the abyss. 5 o'clock, solve world hunger and tell no one. 5:30, jazzercise. 6:30, dinner with me. I can't cancel that again. 7 o'clock, wrestle with my self-loathing. I'm booked. Of course, if I bump the loathing to 9, I could still be done in time to lay in my bed, stare at the ceiling and slip slowly into madness. In high school, I was a super good kid. Straight A student who loved homework, keeping out of trouble, and who was quiet as hell during class. So anyway, there was this guy who was also in AP classes with me, but he was super loud and obnoxious but would pull stunts in such a way that he would have some margin of plausible deniability. Though we never spoke, I'm not sure he even knew I existed. He rubbed me the wrong way. Maybe it was from the one cold day when this other girl in our class had her nipples poking through her shirt. She forgot a sweater and he kept saying to her, "Damn, it's cold, huh?" Maybe it was from when he would pretend to be friends with kid who was definitely spectrum and desperate to be friends with him to do the bully's homework for him and then bully him the next day. Ike. So at random, sometimes once a week or a month or once every couple of months, I would whistle. It's this high-pitched whistle that sounds like a tea kettle that I can do while barely moving my mouth. Back then, no one knew I could do it except for my family. The super obnoxious kid always got in trouble. I was never once suspected. I had an IBS attack once and had to violently shit in a church grounds behind someone's car. Used underwear to wipe too and left that there. Not proud. What life-changing item can you buy for less than $100? Heroin. Edit, you just said life-changing, it doesn't need to be a good thing. Funny. But to be honest and fair, the best $30 one could ever spend would be on a hit of pure MDMA. Ecstasy is no joke, not to be underestimated, and so named for good reason. Feeling loved, loving, and euphoric with a strong sense of attachment can be life-changing, especially for those who do not have those feelings readily available. A king-sized blanket for a queen-sized bed. I got a king for a double bed. Best decision ever. The double sheets fit the bed, but I couldn't snuggle completely under them without curling up. Now, I can hide completely under the duvet stretched out. Best thing ever in the winter. If I pull the covers completely over myself, the boogeyman can't find me. A dash cam for your car can protect you from wrongful claims, also vandalisms and theft. I got one. Although I have never been in an accident before, knock on wood, the peace of mind that it gives me to know that I have backup evidence or anything of that sort for future issues is calming. Best $50 spent in the last 30 days. Carbon monoxide detector. Post-it notes are far cheaper. Our landlord isn't letting me talk to you, but it's important we do. May sound simple, but a good pillow. It is amazing the change in body aches and sleep you see when you have a good pillow that fits you. First aid kit. Similarly, a fire extinguisher. My dad was a firefighter. When my wife and I bought our first house, my dad gave us 6 fire extinguishers, a box of 9 volts, and a life ladder. Man, I miss that guy. Blackout curtains for your bedroom. Changes your life if you want to sleep all day. I refused to have them in my room after living like a vampire for a few years. Combine it with a wake-up light alarm clock. A good shop vac. You will not believe how many uses around the house you'll find for it. Cobweb removal, water removal, gravel removal, vent cleaning, soot trap cleaning, after a good scrub since it's likely dirty from other tasks, car vacuuming, dust sucking, the list goes on. Seriously, if you plan to buy or already own a home, go get a shop vac. A 10-foot charging cable. Or a quality pair of shoes. Fuck me, I'm reading this hunched over with my phone plugged into an impossibly short charging cable. Motion sensor night lights. Can't tell you how many stubbed toes or falls they have prevented. Also a cheap intruder alarm. Get a motion activated toilet bowl light. They're amazing. Don't kill your eyes in the middle of the night when you gotta pee. If you have a large lawn or a property that requires a lot of yard work, get some 3M work tunes. About $50 in their combination hearing protection and Bluetooth headphones so you can actually hear your music without destroying your eardrums. They're a good gift too for anyone you know with a lawn or wood shop or something. At my old house it was a 4 to 5 hour ordeal to mow and trim the property. I'd likely have went fully insane without those. The right shampoo and conditioner. Dude. I use this super girly looking stuff called Love Beauty and Planet, and my hair is glorious and I love putting my hands into it. And other people like putting their hands in my hair too. Generally women. Female marketed products are vastly superior in so many ways, and dudes won't buy it because they're forced into the men's marketed section with bears and wolves and trees that represent shitty college smelling products that are 12 in one body / hair / dish / clothes / car wash. Hair is hair. Choose the products marketed towards people who give a shit about their hair. Be the beautiful man you were meant to be. National Park Annual Pass. If you're a veteran with any percentage disability rating, they're free for life. Sharp knives for the kitchen. I put off buying a whetstone for a long time, mostly because I was nervous I would use it wrong and ruin my knives, but it's not too hard at all if you get one with an angle guide. Makes chopping stuff up faster, easier and safer. In my opinion, definitely a weighted blanket if you have a hard time sleeping at night or have anxiety. They have some at Target for $25 currently. Condoms. My dad's biggest regret. Sunscreen. No skin cancer for me. For anyone that disagrees with this comment. I've had multiple skin cancer surgeries. It's not the scalpel cutting flesh away from your body that hurts the most during the procedure, it's whatever liquid they inject into you to deaden the nerves around the cancer that hurts. The needles don't hurt, but that shit they inject into you is effing nasty. Wear your sunscreen, kids. A good shower head. I cannot stress enough how a high-quality shower head can turn getting clean into utterly zen, 30-minute self-healing and relaxation session. Edit. Okay, clarification. I don't shower for 30 minutes every day. Modern range shower heads use very little water and I only have about 15 minutes to get ready in the morning, so this is a rare treat I let myself do once or twice a month. I appreciate the loving comments. Step 1. Throw away all your socks. Step 2. Buy 3 to 5 packages of the same sock. Step 3. Enjoy a life without ever having to match socks again. A cookbook. Not like a fad celebrity book, but a real old school family cookbook. Best one I ever found was at a garage sale and was like 6 inches thick ring binder full to the brim with yellow pages, some with stains. It honestly should have been a family treasure and I got it for $20. Hundreds of family recipes with easy to follow handwritten notes. I'm sad I never met the grandma that this thing wants. A slow cooker. A Kindle or library card. A juicer/blender. A donation to adopt a pet from an animal shelter. A printer. Rice cooker. My mom laughed at me when I bought a rice cooker. Now she's a believer. A folding wagon. Getting groceries in the house, camping gear, etc. We always have it in the car and you can do 5 trips worth by hand effortlessly. Books. Knowledge is currency that only increases. People of Reddit, what's the most desperate thing you've ever done for money? I participated in a food study where I couldn't eat for a day before, arrived at the lab crazy early in the morning, had a tube put down my throat, and lay there for 6 hours as they pumped liquids into and out of my stomach. After the first 2 hours I begged them to at least turn on the TV, but they would only let me watch PBS so I couldn't accidentally see any commercials about food. It wasn't fun, but the pay was decent and they served me a steak dinner afterward. I sold my body to a drug study for 3 weeks in 1991. We took a dose of some antibiotic every day and had blood drawn throughout the day. Every day. Pay was $2,000, which was sweet for 1991. Being in the drug testing facility for 3 weeks was interesting. I was 2 feet away from getting a payday loan before I came to my senses. So happy you were able to stop yourself, it's such a trap. It really is. Took me over a year to get out of mine. Never again. Once when unemployed, I bought a bunch of king-size candy at Costco, and went door to door selling it saying it was a fundraiser for a church youth group. Made a good profit and was able to pay rent that month. I slept with my 64-year-old landlady. In my defense, it was either that or sleep on the streets. Ah yes, the old pump and dump. Just make sure you get your deposit back. Those dumb surveys. Wasn't worth the time I wasted, only got like $10 total before I gave up. As a kid I did that, and they paid us in these dumb token things that were worth pennies. Had a couple hundred, but it wasn't worth anything. Yay, that was fucking Bitcoin, and I got rid of that computer and never found the old emails again. Would be a millionaire right now. Donated plasma, twice a week, for a few months. But hey, it got me through my last semester in college. Dug under a Chinese restaurant without shoring or permits to get to a clogged grease trap. Pulled and replaced hundreds of fluorescent ballasts, old school ones loaded with PCBs, without safety gear. I used to pose naked for art classes while I was an undergrad. Pay was pretty good, about 5 times minimum wage. One grad student who was a good artist but kind of odd asked if I would do a private session of a few hours. I agreed as I was desperate for money. I figured that I had just been hired for sex. I was a bit conflicted but then just figured why not? I showed up cleaned and prepped and dressed to look good, and it turned out that the artist really did want me to pose. During the whole thing they were polite but very specific on poses, and it was actually a bit challenging. They were so intense. While not particularly good looking, the talent and effort was kind of a turn on. By the end I was half hoping it would turn into sex and they would keep telling me how to pose, what to do, etc. We went over the time but the artist was nice and grateful and paid extra. So I guess that I learned I would be willing to have sex for money in some situations. I scrounged every inch of my car, trunk, under carpet, pulled out seats, to find enough change not to bounce a check. I needed less than $1 and had about an hour to find the money and deposit it. The banker lady knew what was up when I made the deposit. 30-some years later and I still haven't bounced a check. In university, I signed up as a lab rat for various studies. One involved staying awake for 30+ hours in a room with no sunlight, communication, or anything else that might give me a sense of time. Among blood and urine tests as well as various probes and monitoring devices, it also involved keeping a thermometer in my ass the entire time. $1,400 is $1,400 though. I was expecting much juicier answers here. I made porn with my first husband and he sold the photos and videos. They are somewhere in the bowels of the internet, but I have no idea where. No face though. White beard. Red suit. Kids on my knee. Ho, ho, ho. That was a crazy April. Worked nearly 20 years in a place that I knew was toxic, was full of toxic people and put me regularly in direct contact with some of the worst examples humanity had to offer. Same. When I finally left, it felt like Andy at the end of Shawshank Redemption. Worked 50 hours a week at a job that makes me fantasize about driving my car straight into a concrete wall at 100 miles per hour. Mind if I ride shotgun? I was 20, broke, about to be homeless. Guy I used to work for thought I was hot, said he'd pay me $100 if I let him suck me off and jerked him off while he did it. That hundo helped me get my life back on track. Sure, I had to jerk another guy off to get it, but a dick's a dick, man shrugging. Edit, totally was not expecting this to blow up like it did lol. For those that asked, yes, I'm doing much better now. I have a great job as a software developer and finished getting my bachelor's. This incident was 15 years ago. In 7th grade I did a horrible attempt at the worm at a school dance for $1. This is the wholesome content I'm here for. Drove around in the middle of the night in my small town with bolt cutters. I opened up every single newspaper stand I could find and probably made a good $300 that night in quarters. I sold my first guitar that my dad gave to me when I was a kid to pay my rent and buy a microwave. Sounds like something a dad would understand. Started scamming meal delivery companies to be able to eat. I'd break open the ice pack and claim all the food was damaged, then I'd get comped for the meals and get a whole new box delivered for free. Felt very shameful, but hunger is real. What does Europe have that North America does not? Boobs in shampoo commercials. In England they have a dating show called Naked Attraction where they show full male and female nudity. Tax inclusion in prices. I still don't understand that about American stores. Edit, thank you for all the replies and explanations. Conclusion, government is bad. Also, screw Kohl's, apparently, lol. Pretty sure it's to encourage you to spend more money. When you get to the register and it's higher than you expected, most people will just say, oh well. We also have a lot of stores where everything is always 30 to 50% off, so you always think you got a good deal. Bathroom stalls you can't see directly into. Never understood why American stalls are like this. Now. When I was a small child in Australia there were paid toilets in the train stations. Hence the old ditty here I sit broken hearted, paid a penny and only farted. Unexploded ordnance from 2 world wars. I think America has at least 2 unexploded atomic bombs that the government couldn't find after they were lost in a plane crash. Edit, it's more than 2. Neanderthal fossils. That's no way to speak about the royal family. Edit, damn this kinda blew up lol. 50 Hz electrical. 380V 3 phases in residential. I know you can have 3 phases there too, but like, I have it, in my apartment. Edit, you can have 1 phase 230V, 3 phase 380V, 400V, 3P plus neutral, and in Belgium you can also get 3 phases 230V, no neutral. An effective train system. More like an effective public transportation system. More like public transportation system. Europe pays their service staff and don't expect the public to pay their wages, or for their staff to rely on tips. Some states, California for example, pay their service staff at least minimum wage and the staff also gets tipped. We had a server recently who is a college grad and said he didn't want to leave his service job because it paid better than a job he could get with his degree. Walkable cities. I used to live in an apartment complex across the street from a grocery store, and there were no sidewalks or pedestrian crossings to walk there. Edit, yes, of course this was America. Gotta force me to drive across the street, after all. The ability to say cunt and not have people act like you've just shit in the middle of their house. Foreskin. This American woman I talked to on IRC back in the 90s asked me if she could see my foreskin over net meeting. I obliged because why not? She was absolutely fascinated by it because she'd never seen one before despite having had several partners. Explosive ordnance hiding under rocks, inside trees, buried just under the surface. Every few years you hear about someone in Europe finding a grenade or a bomb with sometimes disastrous, sometimes hilarious results. A wonderful aversion to banal small talk. I wouldn't say we are against small talk, but void talk. In America for some reason is expected to go out of your way to talk about stuff none of the speakers gives a shit about. Always found it super weird. Scandinavia. I was going to say parents that leave a baby outside by themselves. But I guess Scandinavia is a shorter way to say that. I mean, who wants to steal a baby in this economy? People who want to have sex with me. Anyway, I assume that's where they are. Talking. I visited the US 2 years ago and people were so friendly and talkative. I can't recall last time someone small talked with me in Sweden. Wild hedgehogs. The best part about having insomnia in late summer is hanging out in the garden and suddenly hearing noises you'd expect from the depth of hell, before a cabbage-sized spiky guy scuttles out from the bushes on his hunt for slugs. The noises hedgehogs make are unreal. Georgia. Oh, wait. I remember when I was younger I was talking to someone on Omegle who said they were from Georgia. It was really confusing why they had such an American accent, not knowing Georgia is also a US state. Tons of really old buildings. The Matterhorn. What are you talking about? That's my favorite ride at Disneyland. More uncircumcised men. Better cheese. I swear to God if anyone says the two things are related I will fawn you. Those things are only related in France. Difficult to speak for all of Europe. Most countries have stuff that others don't. It's a wide variation in a lot of stuff and in daily life too. Difficult to speak for all of Europe. Because of all the different languages, right? GDPR. Seriously, rights and expectations over one's data. Americans have no rights. The greedy corporations do. Christmas markets. Seriously America, we need to get on this train. We have farmers and flea markets in the summer, we just need to get them up in the winter time. And add bratwursts. It's not a physical thing, but North America does optimism better. I've lived in 3 countries and 3 continents so far including Europe and North America. There is something in the air in North America, this includes Canada, that instills a sense of go for it. In me. As vague as it sounds, I found that in the EU, the idea of doing something on your own immediately leads to a sense of no way that will work out. The flip side is that this feeling rarely translates to reality. It's like North America is one big coddling parent that tells you you can do whatever and you will be great at it while the system is the same as the EU. What screams I'm a bad parent? Always believing they're right because they're the adult and therefore not letting the child have any say. Parents who can't apologize to a child. It's okay to have human emotions and moment to be triggered or struggling and lash out or be wrong, but for the love of all things good apologize and change. Zero interest in the kid. Doesn't care what they do or what happens to them as long as they don't inconvenience them. You're the reason I'm stuck with your father. Sure mom, sure. My favorite response to that is, I didn't pick him, you did. I didn't fuck him, you did. Your own children being afraid of you, no child should be afraid of the person that looks after them nearly 24/7. I really don't think it clicks till adolescence either when you look back and realize that you really were terrified of your father 24/7 as a child. Or it's weird when you realize that not all children hate their fathers. Punishing adult children when they don't do everything you say by silent treatment or nasty texts, days later acting like nothing happened. Saying, you never let go of things. Ironically, never thinking you're a bad parent. I was assigned to arrange a free parenting with love and logic course a bit late in the evening for our school. I thought given the time the class was, lots of parents of some of the challenging kids who work, could make it to the class. Within a very short time, the class was full. I attended the class too and noticed the parents I saw were either teachers or parents of well-behaved kids. I felt so naive to think parents of naughty kids would even bother to show up. This still makes me sad to this day. Demeaning your children as means of punishment. The shame game. Brutal. Or just demeaning them for its own sake. Making your child think they aren't good enough. My mom once told me you're a screw-up and you'll always be a screw-up. I still think about that every time life isn't going my way or I'm feeling bad. Recently I was rereading some journals from high school, and there were all these entries about things my mom said to me that I don't even remember but have become an intrinsic part of my insecurity. You'll flunk out of college, get married, have a couple of kids, get a divorce and struggle for the rest of your life like we are now. You'll never be a scholar, you probably won't even go to college. Good God, Tardis Notary, did God not give you the sense he gave a horse? She's a very broken, toxic woman, and I cut her out of my life years ago. I moved across the country to live with my father's sister, who took me in as the child she never had. I graduated with my bachelor's, my MFA, and now I'm starting my PhD. I'm a published writer and have presented at conferences and worked closely with / befriended multiple neat best-selling authors. I've achieved more at 35 than she has her entire life. Don't let your parents tell you you're worthless, or that you're incapable of anything you want to accomplish. Chances are they're bitter, damaged people who are jealous of the success and potential you have. Triangulation. After divorce, one of our parents immediately weaponized our relationship against the other. I'm 32 and still unweaving all of the details in my brain. My mom did this big time with us. Behave or I'll send you to your father's was a threat as a kid. Never really knew my dad or why they got divorced. He's dead, so I know I'll never get the actual reasons or facts on it. Edit, to clarify, Mom didn't kill him. They divorced then he died years later. Blaming your own mistakes and regrets on your kids. Yeah, it's not my fault I was born, it's yours. And the irony of someone who didn't raise the kid properly saying that they were a mistake is even worse. My mother had not intended to get pregnant with me, and yet here I am. Almost every day of my life I heard that, I wasn't planned, I was unwanted, I ruined my parents' life. My childhood was filled with abuse and to this day, the parents still blame me for being born and ruining their lives. They also don't understand why I haven't spoken to or seen them in well over a decade. My favorite part is I would have an older brother, however he died in childbirth. My mother would always invent these lives he would have had if he survived. In all her versions, he would be an astronaut, or a doctor who cured cancer, or a rich successful businessman, all the while ignoring her 4 living children all have mental health issues caused by her. Yelling at the kid for every trivial thing. Treating your son as the man of the house because you're single. Goes right up there with treating your oldest daughter as the stand-in mom because you're single. Or treating your oldest daughter as free nanny and free maid. Using children as pawns in divorces or separations. My niece's father just called his 7-year-old daughter to tell her to make her mother apologize for blocking his number last night. He is upset she won't listen to him scream at her. Kids are opening presents and he's screaming vulgarities at his daughter. Dad of the year right there. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Never saying sorry to the kid when the parents make a mistake. My mom has extreme accountability issues. Nothing is ever her fault. I'm 43 and after therapy this year I finally confronted her about the abuse I suffered as a kid, emotional from her, and physical from my dad. You know what she told me? That my behavior was the reason she and dad had marital problems, and if I had just tried to be a better kid, the whole family could have been happier. I'm very minimal contact with her for so many reasons. The Narcissist's Prayer. Edit, I didn't write this. It's been posted many times on Reddit. That didn't happen. And if it did, it wasn't that bad. And if it was, that's not a big deal. And if it is, that's not my fault. And if it was, I didn't mean it. And if I did, you deserved it. I don't know if this really screams it, but I absolutely hate when adults tell other adults their children's shameful secrets for no reason. Even strangers. It tells me those children probably don't feel like they can trust their parents. Invalidating your child's feelings, struggles, and or mental illness in favor of you don't know what struggling really is or some form of back in my day or you kids are so weak. You have just robbed your child of support, told them their feelings do not matter, and informed them that you are not a safe person to confide in. Using them as props/gain for your YouTube channel. Or social media in general. Yeah. Anyone that makes their life seem perfect to total strangers is guaranteed to be a real piece of shit in reality. Automatically dismissing and invalidating many of your child's opinions because you think since they're a child, they don't know anything. Yes, they're not always right, but they're still people and should be treated with respect. Saying you're too young to be depressed and ignoring red flags from mental illnesses. I felt that personally. Oh yeah, or saying you have nothing to be depressed about because there are people out there with more difficult lives. Saying things like, you're such a disappointment, or, I wish I had a daughter instead, or, you ruined my and your mother's sex life. This is stuff I heard for years. What the actual hell? That's just messed up. The infantilization of their children. Wanting them to stay helpless babies forever because they don't want them to grow up. I'm a nanny and it seems like a growing trend. It's one thing to engage in some infantile behavior or spoil your children a little. It's another thing to bend to every whim and not make your kids uncomfortable. Example with some kids I'm currently dealing with, not potty training them. Attacking the self-esteem in any way. Yeah, hearing your own mom call you a fat ass is a bit of a damper on the self-esteem. Telling your kid that you need them only for their money in the future. One day we will all live on the same plot of land so that you can still take care of me. I've got a life to live, stop holding me back with your health issues you have caused yourself because you've been a deadbeat for the past 20 years, Mom. Your adult children don't talk to you. Yeah, it took me a while to understand that me wanting to go no contact with my parents is a failure on their part. Not mine. Your kids never visiting once they move out or go to college. Oh, it's me. You've caught me. Both of my parents got separated this year and both of them will be enjoying Christmas alone. They have truly reaped what they have sown. When it's Christmas and you're glad you don't have to see them. When the best gift they can give you is their absence. Zero interest in the kid. Doesn't care what they do or what happens to them as long as they don't inconvenience them. Only caring for the child when they do what you want them to do. For example, if they play the sport you want them to play. And when they inconvenience them, violence solves the problem by shutting the kid up again. Being addicted to meth. Jesse. Yo, bitch. We need to cook. I volunteer at and have had student placements at a children's hospital and we've had patients with serious brain injuries due to abuse, shaking, attempted drowning, etc. So yeah, I'd say those parents are pretty bad. When I was maybe 9 we lived in some apartments. One night I heard a baby crying and crying but it sounded like it was outside. I looked out my window and saw a man holding a pillow over a baby's face trying to kill it. I freaked out and told my mom and she called the cops. Years later I met a woman with a child who had very severe delays mentally and physically and she is telling me the story of how she got away from her abusive ex-husband. In an odd series of coincidences over 20 years later I reconnected with my neighbor from those apartments. That was the worst thing I have ever seen in my life. Edited. Thank you all so much for the outpouring of love for my mom. I told her Reddit has deemed her a hero. I am sure you guys made her day. Not correcting your kids. It's okay, they're kids. Well, you kinda forgot the part where you're supposed to teach them. They don't just grow out of their bad behavior by themselves. Thinking that small children are just selfish tiny adults. Your kid isn't asking for stuff because they are selfish, mostly we're excluding their occasional manipulative tendencies. They are doing it because they are 5. Don't be a dick to your kid because they are asking for support/help/food. They also know nothing other than themselves. They're learning. It isn't selfishness, it's their worldview which is literally undeveloped. What's the weirdest flex you have? I work the overnight shift and still get 8 hours of uninterrupted quality sleep every day. Now this is a flex. I've been booed by 10,000 people at once. I know athletes and celebrities have been booed by more people, but I'm neither. I was randomly picked out of the crowd at an NBA game to attempt a 3-point shot, to win everyone a free pizza. I bricked it. That's awesome. Rob Zombie accidentally punched me. Kyle Gass of Tenacious D accidentally punched me in the teeth with a microphone, lol. He was performing with his personal band, covering a Boston song, and was jumping around the audience. When the chorus came on, he shoved the microphone in my face, but I leaned forward at the same time to sing it and he smacked me in the teeth accidentally. He was so startled that he pulled the mic back and said sorry. Into it. My teeth are fine, it was just hilarious. I have dextrocardia. As in, my heart is on the right-hand side of my chest. My heart defects all fall under an even rarer condition called CHARGE syndrome. CHARGE is an acronym for different health complications. CHARGE is so rare that I was like the 3rd known case of its kind on the whole island when I was born. I'm a popular you'll never see this again in your career examination subject with student doctors and that. I can always pick the exact right size container to put leftovers in. Mom? Oh, this shit is grandma level. I can get rid of hiccups on demand. Like without fail, if I have hiccups I can just think about it and they go. The next evolution of humankind. Truly, he is homo superior. In the 90s I worked as customer service for an airline ticket seller. They just started a website, this was like 97 or so, and I was in their first internet customer service agent training. Didn't learn a thing. Anyways, as I was doing the job I realized I was getting the same questions over and over again. Standard procedure was to email back and have to type out the same message again and again. So I, being the young, tech-savvy guy, very few of us back then, just made a window file and typed out the responses, then cut and pasted when I got those emails. So most customer service agents did maybe 30 to 40 emails a day. I was doing 200 to 250. I was doing so many that when the big wigs were visiting the call center, the COO came to talk with me and asked me how I was able to answer as many customers as I was. Dumb young me explained what I had done creating canned responses for the company. She asked me to email my list to her. I did, and soon the entire company was using it. I didn't get any credit, or money, or a promotion. Nada. I left that place like a month later cause I was 18 and hated the hours. I have donated over 15 gallons of blood. All at once? He never said it was his blood. I got picked up in a white van as a child by a stranger to get a lift to somewhere 5 minutes away. I was in the back off the van for half an hour, then they opened the door at the place I was trying to go. To this day I'm not sure, but I think a pedophile changed his mind. This also happened to me. When I got out of the car running up to my babysitter's house, she ran out going, "Who is that? Why are you with a stranger?" And I was just like, oh yeah, oops. A tree fell on me in 2021 and broke all my ribs, my spine, and popped both my lungs. I dragged myself out and survived long enough, slowly drowning in my own blood, and internally bleeding out, to be found and get airlifted to a trauma ward. So I got almost as much metal grafted to my bones as Wolverine, though I don't flex much because I got so much metal making me rather stiff and rigid. I know how to program in Fortran. I'll admit, it works on an increasingly smaller segment of the population, but it's all I have. Buddy, that's job security for the next 20 years. I have won a little company award at the theme park I work at. For my barista skills. 3 times. Please don't quit, please don't quit, please don't quit. I can read hieroglyphics, ancient Greek and Latin. Wow. How did you learn hieroglyphics? Any resources publicly available you could point me to? I'm an archaeology major and one of the options was ancient Egyptian. Sorry, I don't know any external sources. Drunk with my father-in-law at my 40th, and we both ended up taking a piss in the garden. He told me that I had a very good stream, and I've worn that badge with pride ever since. Reminds me of a funny story. I was diving with a friend and his dad, and went to the restroom. I went to a urinal, his dad to a stall. Start peeing and hear him say, "Oh, I hear you over there like you still have a prostate." I had to take an IQ test when I was being evaluated for ADHD, and apparently I am in the 99th percentile in spatial reasoning. I can't do math or talk good, but I can pack the hell out of a suitcase. My body is weirdly good at telling which sounds to be concerned about when I'm asleep, to the point where I can generally sleep through most things that wouldn't otherwise affect me. Roadworks in the street right outside my window? No problem. Noisy neighbors deciding to do late night DIY? Easy. Street racers? Didn't even realize they were there. But the lock on the front door being fiddled with, despite the sound having to travel down the hall and through a closed bedroom door? I'm wide awake. Footsteps in the hallway? It's probably just the SO, but wake up just in case. Someone put a hand on a door handle somewhere in THR flat? It's not the bedroom door handle, but what if it is though? Better wake up. The problem I have is actually getting to sleep in the first place. I'm American but can eyeball a space or item length using the metric system with scary accuracy. My coworkers wondered if I was a robot at times. Edit, though in Colorado, I worked for a Danish company manufacturing wind turbines. I eventually worked on the road to climb them. So the estimates were generally fiberglass component length. I survived 9 heart attacks before I turned 40. I have 4 stints following 3 angiograms and 1 open heart surgery with vein transfer. That failed. I've been in heart failure status for a year. But honestly, I'm healthier than I was a year ago. A year ago couldn't walk half a mile. Now can walk 3 miles without issue. I even survived COVID this year after 2 years of isolating. I very indirectly was responsible for an A-list rugby player getting suspended because of a photo of him pissing in his own mouth. A truly insane series of events, and I will not elaborate, lol. You killed Todd Carney. Maybe. I can place every European country on the map, without borders. Hey, if there's no borders, you can just put them anywhere, right? He technically didn't say he can place them in the right place. I recently had a neuropsychological exam done. In the portion testing semantic fluency, I had to list as many animals as I could as fast as I could. I scored in the 97th percentile. I know my animals. And on the ascending numbers trail making test, a task requiring visual scanning, processing, and sequencing, I scored in the 88th percentile. But that's more of a general flex and not particularly weird. Animals will never get the drop on me. I will recognize them faster and more accurately than the overwhelming majority of people who have taken that specific test. I'm a chick and can leg press more than all my male friends and my boyfriend. My personal record is 490 pounds and I'm 5'2" and 110 pounds. Edit, I should also mention that I'm a teen and so are my friends and I'm the oldest in the group. I wouldn't call that a weird flex, that's a legit impressive flex. I feel like I'm getting better at being open with my friends and in doing so, allowing them to feel they can be open with me. It means we aren't scared to talk about tough things. It's not much of a flex, but guys have went to the grave without talking about feeling, hardships or emotional trauma. Learning to be a safe person, it's a thing, while young will make your friends appreciate you all the more. It will also do wonders for your relationship so, should you have or gain one. Eminem mentioned something I said to him in one of his songs. Edit, I can't go into details without giving away a little too much personal info. I'm trying to stay anonymous here for my own sanity. But it was one of the bigger songs on his Revival album in 2017. Paul Rosenberg verified this claim. Stan? Because that's not great if so. I can tell the difference between I can't believe it's not butter and real butter. I got a perfect score on the act. It's a standardized test Americans take in high school. Where am I years later? Cashiering at Lowe's Lamau. I have good enough memory to know where everything is at my Costco. If someone in my house asks me where something is, I can generally picture it and its surroundings in my head and accurately tell them where it is, even if I've not seen it in a while. Best example is when my daughter came downstairs looking for a specific earring and asked if I'd seen it. I told her it was on the bookcase under her TV, top shelf, behind her copy of Carrie. She looked skeptical, but went to her room. She came back demanding to know how I did it. I just shrugged and said I saw it there a few months back when I fixed her soundbar. It's super handy now that I live with my partner and stepkids, all of whom have severe ADHD and can't find anything ever. I've been the most northern person in the world, on land. I visited Alert, Nunavut, and at one point a group of us went down to the end of the airstrip. I stepped back to take a group photo with the base in the background and I realized that apart from people under the ice in submarines or flying on a plane, everyone else in the world was south of me. It was a weird sort of realization. We then all took turns being the most northern person in the world. I got pre-approved for a mortgage. As a millennial, this feels great. I can pay rent, gas, and electricity and have money for entertainment. Guys, look. We have a rich person over here. My metabolism, I haven't gained fat my whole life even if I consistently eat junk food or don't exercise. Fuck you. Merry Christmas though, enjoy the cookies. What made you not want to have kids? Raised my siblings. I'm done. Teaching them to read, acting as a lifeguard anytime we were around water, trying to patch their wounds or reassure them school isn't so scary. My brother is dyslexic and my sister has a learning disability. I taught them both to write their names and would always help them with homework before working on my own. I don't recall my parents being anywhere nearby in 95% of my childhood memories. I love kids, but the stress of raising kids as a kid has deterred me from ever even considering that sort of responsibility again. Kids. I have kids and I can't stand other kids. I also accept people can't stand mine. I swear, some of the Facebook pictures of my friends who have kids, it's like you can see the children slowly sucking the life force from their parents over time. Kids are motivated by the basest human desires. I am quite fond of sleep, flexibility and money. And spontaneity. And lower stress, and no legal responsibility for another person's entire well-being for 18 years. Yay, I'm not responsible enough to manage diabetes, let alone a whole-ass person. My wife is bipolar and I have recurring depressions. We figured adding kids to the mix wouldn't be fair to anyone. Edit, I'm keeping the hyphen, since I firmly believe my wife has the ability to be on both the North and the South Pole. Not at the same time, obviously. Even medicated and in therapy, I can get mean when I'm in a mood. My mom is the same way. Some people shouldn't be parents and I think it's great that folks are realizing this instead of popping them out and winging it, like most of our parents did. I had a child born with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. I felt incredibly guilty for bringing such a lovely child into this world with so much difficulty he faced. After he passed away, I never wanted to bring another child into this cruel world. My brother's got Duchenne and autism simultaneously. The autism is a blessing in disguise, as I don't think he spends much time depressed about his muscle condition. It's still tough. Holy shit, sometimes I forget how blessed I am with my boring life. My parents. They weren't good examples to learn from. My father had a terrible childhood because of abusive parents, and he still suffers because of that today. However, he didn't pass it on to me. He has been such a great father to me despite everything his parents put him through. Not saying that you should have kids, just want you to know that your parents do not define you and that you are not them. Just never felt that maternal urge. And it's cruel/wrong to have them unless you actually want them. To be honest, this is validating because everyone I know has baby fever and all that, and I just don't get it. People always told me I'd change my mind, so I always waited to feel it. I never did, and I feel like it was such a disservice to me to be told that. I'm 40 now. To be honest, I'm too lazy to be a parent. Plus I'm terrified of the idea of pregnancy and labor. Same, this coochie is a one-way street. Edit, Proud that my most updated post is about my coochie. Seeing them in the wild. In high school, we had to do mandatory volunteer work our last quarter in senior year in order to graduate. I did mine at a Head Start in my city. I was helping in the preschool one day when a kid named Shane rubbed peanut butter on my black suede Pumas, spat in my face, and ran away. Thankfully one of the teachers saw it happen, and saw my reaction, so she took him out of the room before I fucking murdered him. If I can't afford a house, what makes you think I can afford a child? The economy is a dumpster fire. Thank you for being honest. Kids are fucking expensive and really it shouldn't come down to economics, but in this day and age it does. Edit. Wow, over 1,000 upvotes. Thanks all. I probably sounded aggressive a little, but however much some want children these days, you have to put the money into the equation, and trust me, however much personally you might want a child, the literal cost can cause a lot of pain, anxiety, and breakups, and nobody wants that, especially for the child. The thought of just being pregnant is terrifying. Also, you have to dedicate your entire life to them. Yes. Seeing what pregnancy does to your body is absolutely fucking terrifying. Childbirth scares me so much. The pain. The tearing. The shuffling of organs. The postpartum symptoms. Just sounds like hell to me. The economy and financial instability. Same reason for me. Also the possibility of my vagina tearing into my asshole and creating one giant vagus hole. Edit. According to responses, it can be stapled/stitched back together, but the anal sphincter doesn't feel the same. What a terrible day to be literate. I'm broke and I hate noise. This simple response really sums it up. Giving birth. This. I wouldn't be opposed to being a mom, but I 100% don't want to give birth. I also don't want to hear about anyone's childbirth experience. I'm in no way going to be excited to hear about the pain, mess, chaos that you went through in delivery room just because I have a vagina. My family ask me and my wife about this all the time. The best way I've found to explain it is to ask them why they don't own horses. They are impractical, expensive, require constant attention, I'd probably have to relocate, why would I want one in the first place, etc. The exact same arguments apply. Lol, as someone with horses but zero desire to have kids, I have to say, I totally agree. But even horses are 10,000 times less demanding of attention than kids. I could leave my horses unattended for days at a time and they'd probably be thrilled. Try that with a child under 16 and it's apparently frowned upon. Can barely look after myself, let alone another person. Don't want to pass my mental health issues. The world needs less people, not more. I would make a shitty parent. People always ask me, what if I change my mind about not wanting kids? It's strange to me that they don't often consider the implications of them changing their minds about having one. Consider that the success rate of reversing a vasectomy is between 80 to 90%. The success rate of legally reversing having a kid sits closer to 0%. People ask me that, too. They have no idea how resolute I am. And you can adopt if you change your mind. Or get a puppy. I hate interruptions, inconveniences, and misunderstandings with a passion. I don't think I could answer a child's endless questions or feign excitement over their creations/actions without sarcasm. I can't get pregnant and no, I'm not ready to be a parent yet. Can't be a good influence for a young one if I'm still occasionally fucking up with drugs, self-harming, and not doing well. That stuff emotionally transfers to the kid and isn't conducive to a healthy environment for growth. You're very responsible not having kids until you work through those things. Too risky. Nothing is guaranteed that you'll have a healthy baby. The child could be severely disabled and you'll have to be their caretaker for life. They could have mental health issues. They could be a weeb living in your basement forever. They could be completely soulless and evil. I'm not prepared to handle that. Also, sleep is good. It's so refreshing to see another person who thinks this. I always feel like a shitty person for not wanting a kid with disabilities. I applaud the parents who do and who love their children unconditionally, but I truly don't think I could. I'd rather not risk it. I'd rather regret not having a kid than regret having one. I have no desire. I like sleep. I like money. I like having a clean house at all times. I like my body. I like my freedom. Was raised in a religion that told me the only purpose in life was to raise a family. Then I was abused by a church leader and decided I don't want any potential kids that would have to deal with me and all of my baggage, despite therapy and medications improving my life the past year or so. I heard a Bill Burr, edit, nope, it was Neil Brennan, bit recently talking about climate change and kids. Loosely paraphrased. Imagine you're at a high school party, trapped in the living room, packed in like sardines. You can't move at all. The roof is on fire, there's water flooding into the basement, and the cops are on the way to arrest everyone. You turn your head to look at your friend, and say we should invite Kevin. I'm a 28-year-old female, not convinced I want kids. Lack of freedom, especially to travel, constantly worrying about someone else / being responsible for them, the state of the world, my own mental health stuff that can be genetic, knowing pregnancy is incredibly dangerous, having 4 friends very recently have their first children and seeing them miserable, the idea of forever being a mom. It's all overwhelming. Plus I see kids every day with behavioral and mental health problems. I kinda just don't want to risk that being my kid. The pregnancy experience alone is a no. FYI, just being pregnant is painful. Not even second term, but the first weeks of pregnancy it hurts to just be pregnant. 9 months of that, and then the real work begins? No, thank you. Besides kids themselves, parents. I don't think I've ever seen a non-miserable parent when the kid is under 10. I scrolled down way too far for this. I work with kids, I love kids. I have yet to hear a friend say having their kid was worth it. Near constant complaining, even from friends who are generally easygoing. A lot of things. I like how my body looks and I don't want to change that. I can't take care of myself properly. I don't think I can take care of a child. Don't like kids in general. Except for my nieces and nephews. Growing up I felt as if I don't want to exist. Don't want to raise a child and fuck up. Because I don't want the kid to grow up thinking the same. I worked in customer service jobs for a long time, and kids aren't the problem as much as parents. That said, my family has couples with and without kids, and the ones without seem a lot happier with their situations. Nothing. Just never felt the need, even when people matter-of-factly said when you have kids, it was always just a no thanks. Feeling reinforced by seeing children and parents, and the cost of it all, but just never a consideration for me. I'm sure I will be downvoted for this, but honestly I was afraid of having a child with autism or health issues of some sort. I just don't think I'm strong enough to deal with those scenarios. I don't think you should be downvoted for reality. More people need to consider that the picturesque idea of having a perfect child may not be the case, and what happens if that is the case. Caring for a special needs child is a lifetime-long job and then some. Because I know families who are worried sick about what happens if they pass away before their kid. If you want to see more content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for daily uploads. After you've done that, check out one of our other videos.